We're here at Synergy Education in Midtown Manhattan for a very special evening with Robi Damelin. If you do not know that woman, she is extraordinary. The journey that she has been going through in the past 10 years or a little more than that is something that is anything but miraculously. But let me not talk too much superlatives. She's here next to me. Tell us about your journey a little bit, for someone who has not heard about it.
Well, it started when my son David was killed. Well, really not. It started in South Africa when I was in the anti-apartheid movement, but I actually discovered the very first social justice act that I had. When I was 5, I stole a horse. It was being beaten by the dairy, and I took it home and put it in our tennis court. And of course, you can imagine my father, when he came home, found a horse in the tennis court. So, everything that happened almost was in a way to prepare me to be a survivor that I am,
And the thing is that your intolerable tragedy in life, to lose a son, has become a triumph that people look up to you, what you've done with that.
Well, that I don't really need to be a hero. I think I'm not. I just think I'm a person that understands, mainly also a lot from South Africa, from the Truth and Reconciliation Commission, that without reconciliation, Israel and Palestine will never have peace. We'll just have another ceasefire with some political agreement behind it. And so we must find a way to see the humanity in the other. And that's a kind of a pilgrimage in many ways.
And for people, I've heard from people here in the Jewish community especially, she wants to go to bed with the Palestinians, she loves the Palestinian. Is that the truth? You're pro-Israel, aren't you?
Well, why would I live there? And if I paid such a high price, I could disappear. And the reason that I'm there is because I love Israel, but I also want Israel to be moral, and I want Israel to be safe. And the only way that Israel will be safe is to look for another way that's not violent.
Now, let's not keep the people from this wonderful evening that you're going to have here tonight. Just in a few sentences, what can we expect tonight?
Well, I'm really going to tell them a little bit about my personal story, and then I will tell them about the work that we do in the Parent Circle, because we're an organization of 600 families who've all lost an immediate family member, Palestinian and Israeli. Then I will tell them about the women's group, because they want to take a commitment to support women. And we have an amazing idea of embroidered shoes, which we want people to walk the talk and to try and do marching all over the world. It's very ambitious, but it's going to work.
Excellent. Well, we have a full house here, so good luck tonight.
Thank you.
אנחנו לא רוצים אתכם פה.
אנחנו לא רוצים אתכם פה.
لا نريدكم هنا.
לא רוצים אתכם פה.
لا نريدكم هنا.
لا نريدكم هنا.
لا نريدكم هنا. אנחנו לא רוצים אתכם פה.
لا نريدكم هنا.
אנחנו לא רוצים אתכם פה.
אנחנו לא רוצים אתכם פה.
אנחנו לא רוצים אתכם פה.
لا نريدكم هنا.
אנחנו לא רוצים אתכם פה.
لا نريدكم هنا.
אנחנו לא רוצים אתכם פה.
لا نريدكم هنا.
אנחנו לא רוצים אתכם פה.
אנחנו לא רוצים אתכם פה.
אנחנו לא רוצים אתכם פה.
لا نريدكم هنا.
עופו מפה. אנחנו לא רוצים אתכם פה.
אנחנו לא רוצים אתכם פה.
בידיים שלנו. זה לא כתוב בשום מקום בעולם, שאנחנו צריכים וחייבים להמשיך להרוג אחת את השני. ודווקא לפני הבחירות רוצים להגיד שתבחרו מנהיג אמיץ.
When David was killed, my son, I remember going to the cemetery and there was only one grave, and now there's row after row after row of graves. For what? So the two clips that you saw tonight are very much part of who we are and what we do. The first one, We Don't Want You Here, started just before the war. 3 young men were captured and killed by the Hamas. And then a Palestinian was very violently killed by some settlers. So we already knew at the parent circle, and we are a group of 600 families, half Palestinian, half Israeli, who've all lost an immediate family member to the conflict. We knew immediately that this was the beginning of a cycle of violence, because that's how we live in the Middle East. It's always another cycle and another cycle and another cycle. And so we decided to create something which was called Peace Square. We took a sort of tent and we opened it up at the Cinematheque in Tel Aviv every night, sirens, no sirens, whatever was happening, so that people could have a place to come and talk and dialogue and listen. One of the problems that we all seem to have is we don't know how to listen. And even if you don't agree, that is the most important time to listen, because you don't know what you're missing. We create this label on somebody's forehead and we decide that we know who they are and what they're going to say. And sometimes when you just take the time to recognize their pain or their story, it can change the whole world for you. So then we have this wonderful advertising agency called Saatchi & Saatchi. You probably know who they are. It's not small fry. They love us. People love us. And you know, sometimes you can ask people to do things and they want to do it. They want to do something, but they never are asked. And so they don't know what to do. So sometimes you can just give them a little challenge and they want to do it. So Saatchi called us and said, we want to do something together with you. And they came up with a bunch of ideas, but this one was the most powerful. And so it was in the middle of the war. You have to understand that this is not an easy situation for a Palestinian who's watching Al Jazeera and Al Arabiya and the Hamas television, or an Israeli who's watching our television to see what is happening on both sides through the interpretation of the media. Do I have to tell you what that can mean? So for them to come together and to continue to work regardless, that is when you are put to the test, not when everything's nice and you can hug each other and eat hummus. It's when things go bad that it's the test to see if you really mean what you say. So we all got together, and you will see my grandchild in there and Bassam's children. And it was the most extraordinary day because it was a chance to meet, because we were so cut off during the war. And we got special permission for the Palestinians to come. And we made this clip, and the clip went viral. And it was on BBC, on Sky, on all the American televisions, Canadian television, all over Europe. Billions of people saw it all over the world. It was on Israeli television many, many times. And it was a wonderful way for us to say, this is the price of war. We don't realize, you know, people think they're invincible, but they're not. And so now there are more than 2,000 families in Gaza who have lost their family members, and 70 Israelis who have lost their children. It will never be the same for any of them. You have now more than 2,000 reasons for hatred from Gaza. You also have the families of young soldiers who, once the media go away, you know, when the media is there, it's all very hyped, and how brilliant your child was and how beautiful he was and how he wanted to go to the army and all of these stories. And then they go away and the families are left with broken hearts. And this is the consequence of this madness. And what I said there, for what, I mean for what. I know what it is to lose a child. It is probably, you know, I'm a big fixer, but I can't fix this. And so you make a decision in your life, what will I do with this? What shall I do with this massive pain that keeps me awake at night? How will I be able to continue with my life? Even though all of my life I had been working in organizations for coexistence, both in South Africa, I guess by now you recognize that I don't have a very strong Israeli accent. So, and how will I cope with the rest of my life? How will I cope without David? David was my best friend. I'm not going back for Passover, especially so that I don't have to be at home, because every year David used to bring all his friends who wouldn't speak to their parents, and we used to make a huge meal. And now it's kind of empty. So I don't want to be there. So I didn't know what to do with my life. You know, I did know that I wanted to do something to prevent other families from experiencing this pain. But I didn't have a way to go for this. So then a religious Jewish man came to see me. And he said, I want to invite you. His son had been killed by the Hamas, kidnapped and killed. I want to invite you to come to a seminar at the end of the week, a workshop. And I said, no way, I'm not going to mix with other bereaved parents. It's too much. I'm carrying all of this on my own shoulders. I don't need any more. But he was even more of a bulldozer than me, and that's saying something. And so I went. And for the first time, I met Palestinian mothers who'd lost children. And I recognized that we shared the same pain. The pain of mothers wherever you go is the same pain if they lose a child. There isn't any difference between the color of their skin or their religion or anything else or their political beliefs. I promise you that when they go to bed at night, everybody's tears on the pillow are the same color. There's no difference. So then I looked at the mothers and I looked into their eyes, and on recognizing this, I realized what a strong and wonderful way this would be to make a difference. Because if we could stand together and talk in the same voice for reconciliation, then surely people around us would recognize that it is possible and that people can also change. You cannot be stuck in the same as you were forever. You can change if you want to. You can change if you recognize the humanity in the other. Because when you will recognize the humanity in the other and when you will understand their story, I promise you, if we sat here now and I sat you down for 3 or 4 days and you each stood up and told us who you are, but not your name and your profession, your story, because we all have one. If you did that, there would be such an intertwined feeling. You know, in South Africa, they call it Ubuntu. It means your life and my life and everybody's life is intertwined. And what will happen to me will affect you. And what you will do will affect my life. So then I started to travel all over the world because I thought I was really quite a smart woman, you know, and gave lectures in the Houses of Parliament and in the Congress, and really, I thought I was quite something, you know, talking about peace and reconciliation. And I meant it. It isn't that I didn't mean it, but nobody put me to the test yet. Then one day I came home and there was a knock on my door, and it was the army. And they came to tell me that they caught the man who killed David. David was a student at Tel Aviv University, and he was studying for his master's in the philosophy of education. He was part of the peace movement, and he was also part of the officers who did not want to serve in the occupied territories. Do you know what the occupied territories are? I mean, I'm kind of talking to you like you all are very au fait with the situation. But it is possible that you aren't. Because I've been watching your media for the past week and a half, and the only thing that I saw was about the aeroplane that crashed. And you know what the saddest thing is, if you think about it? Nobody spoke about the people that died there. There's no identity of who died. It's all about this man who was mad and committed suicide. But something like 160 people died there. Who were they? Do we not care about them? Every human being, where is the sanctity of human life? So when they came to tell me that they caught the man who killed David, then that was really tough. Because then I had to see if I really mean it. And you see, you can say words, but do you mean it? Do you mean when you say shalom or salam or peace? Or is this just tripping off your tongue? And it took a long time, and I'm not going to go into the whole story, but I wrote a letter to the man who killed, to his family, of the man who killed David. And there's been an ongoing connection. And eventually he got the letter in prison, and it took him something like 3.5 years to answer. And he answered not exactly a letter from Martin Luther King, but I recognize something amazing. And if I can give you one little gift tonight that you take away, you must think about when you forgive, you then give up being a victim. And I don't know what you mean when you say you forgive. I'm not talking about turning the other cheek. I don't know what that definition is. It's personal. But when you can do that, you will become free. Because until you don't give up on that, you are a victim. And so whatever happens, you will always be a victim. And you can't move on. And so even with little things that happen in your daily life, it's so good to be able to let it go and to understand why. I have a wonderful definition of forgiving, which I got from a South African woman whose daughter was killed by APLA, which was the military wing of the African National Congress. And she said, forgiving is giving up your just right to revenge. For me, it's also understanding why. When I understood that this man who killed my son had seen his own uncle very violently killed when he was a child by the Israeli army, and when he lost 2 uncles in the second uprising, that is when I could understand why. It isn't that I condone. I don't condone any violence. But it was a reason for understanding that he went on a path of revenge. But there is no revenge. You see, we think we know that we can do something that's going to change and I'll feel better. But you don't. Doesn't matter what you do. I promise you I would jump from the top, mind you, it's not very high, but I would jump from the top of this building if I could spend 1 more minute with David. But I can't. So what do you do with your life in a circumstance like this? One of the things that I began to realize more and more is women. You see, nobody asks us, shall we go to war? Nobody asks women, shall we have a ceasefire? And nobody invites us to the table. But who are the people that really are the victims of the war? You know, when I was in my apartment, hang on, I have to have a drink. It's not alcohol. That'll be later. During the war, there were a lot of rockets not too far from my house. It's quite scary. I tell you, the sirens are the thing that really freak you out. They were going to change the sirens to the ice cream, you know these ice cream tunes? So that people wouldn't be so freaked out, because it's horrible. And I went down into the shelter in my building. Not a great shelter, but anyway, I met my neighbors and I met their dogs. And there was a woman standing with a baby like this, and it had a little ball in its hands. And I thought to myself, wow, you're so lucky. Think how insane this is. Why would I think I'm lucky? Can anybody imagine why? Because I have somewhere to run. If you live in Gaza, you have nowhere to run. There's no shelter for a woman and her children. If she stays at home, she might get bombed there. If she runs away, she might get bombed on the way. And even if she goes into a school like UNRWA, where they are shooting rockets, she may find herself also being bombed there. And then I listened to a woman on the radio from Sderot. Sderot is a little town just on the border of Gaza, a little Israeli town. And I hear this woman saying, I have 3 children and I have 15 seconds to get to the shelter. I don't know what to do because one is in a wheelchair. Who shall I take? Do you begin to understand how mad this all is? What came out of this war? Nothing. Just more dead people. Just more families. So we could have perhaps dialogued or spoken to each other before. And I can tell you that many very radical people came to the tent, radically right. I don't like labels, but that's who they were. And we discovered that by allowing them to talk and by sitting and listening, it isn't that we all agreed afterwards, but it brings the whole tone down, because very often what happens is the left and the right, you have it in your government. If you listen to them, it's like a mirror image, one of the other. There's no difference really in the way that they talk about each other and in the way that they destroy each other. And that's very much what is happening in Israel and Palestine. We had many demonstrations. Wow, sometimes I can't think of words in English. Demonstrations. And I was watching this rhetoric and watching the violence that was coming out of a demonstration. It's frightening, because people forget what their moral position is, and they just become angry and violent. So here we come back to women. I believe very strongly, and I'm so happy to hear that you want to be a part of making a change for women. And that doesn't exclude the men in the room. It doesn't, because if you really care and you want to see a better world, you would support the whole program of getting women to the table. It's time. So how to do it? In the parent circle, we have a very strong women's group. And I started this because we used to have seminars, and the women would sit outside with their children, and the men would sit inside, the effendis, and make decisions. I'm talking about the Palestinian men. And I really thought that was dreadful. So we started to have our own meetings amongst the women. We started to listen to stories. When Palestinian mothers first came, they hadn't had anywhere to tell the story of what happened to their child. So what would happen is they would tell a very graphic story of what happened, where the bullet came in, how much blood there was, how terrible it was, how the child felt, the most graphic details that you can think of. But the more they could tell the story, suddenly, after a while, out comes who the child was. And that is another step in healing. So I looked at all of this and I thought, what can we do? And we started off with very few women. I mean, very few active women. I would say now that we have at least 150 women who are on, I'm not talking about just members, we've got loads of members, but there's always a core of women that want to do something. So we decided to have a workshop. We do workshops also. You know, I haven't got the exclusivity on workshops. And what we did was really an exploration of the narrative of the other. But all of the women that were in this group were bereaved, Palestinian and Israeli. And one of the first things that we did was to go to a kibbutz. You know, that's a communal farm. And one of the members of our group comes from there. Her name is Mashka. She works in the fields and she has a big tractor and she's terribly butch, but she also wears a little diamond necklace So I really love her, but she lost her father and her brother. And she could tell through the kibbutz where she lives, which was established about 19... Am I talking too much? I can shut up now for a while. Okay. She opened... I don't get hurt. Sometimes I just go on. So this kibbutz was established roundabout in the late 30s, 1930, 38. So it experienced all the historical wars of Israel. You know, that's endless. And she could tell the whole history of Israel through her kibbutz. And the Palestinian women had never in their lives been to a kibbutz, so for them it was extraordinary. And then we had a day which we spent learning about the Palestinian prisoners. You have to understand that the Palestinian prisoners for the Palestinians are freedom fighters. No matter how we might see them or think about them, that's who they are for the Palestinians. And let me tell you, and I know there is a television here, I want to say this because it's very important. If we are going to have a peace process, we have to take into consideration freeing the Palestinian prisoners. It is hard, but that's what it's going to entail. And so then, after that, we went to listen about the prisoners, and then we decided, okay, now what we want to do is a huge event. And you know, it's fun to do big events. You saw that here. Look how many people are in this room. Maurice. And so what we did is we decided to do this, and we decided we took groups of women who liked to do certain things. So there were 10 women. We have a photography exhibition, which one day you can show here if you want to. It's made by 10 women, 5 Palestinian, 5 Israeli. And one of the people who took another course which we have, which is a narrative project, said she wanted to give something back. She's a very famous photographer. And she brought 2 other photographers, a Palestinian and another Israeli, and they created an exhibition which is called The Presence of the Void, which means the presence of the person that they lost. 5 Palestinian women, 5 Israeli. It was the most extraordinary experience for them, and the most talented of all the photographers is a 65-year-old Palestinian woman who actually can't read and write. But she learned how to use a camera, and she has such a sense of aesthetic that it's just beautiful. We took it to Seattle, and next month, this month, I'll be in Paris with the exhibition. And you know, art is a wonderful, wonderful way to get people to listen, people who really don't care what your message is, but they're interested in art. So they arrive and they listen, and you capture them. It's like, in a way, documentaries. That's another thing that we use a lot in the parent circle, because people can't answer you back. They're so busy, you know, they've got to watch the film first, and then they can get angry. So the other thing that we did is we cooked together. Now, it's not that we've become chefs or that we thought it was such a remarkable idea, but we decided to make jam and pickles really to learn the narrative of the other. Because, you know, when you see how people cook, you know who their mothers were and their grandmothers. Very often, you get the story of how the grandmother used to do this and with what they made it. And then we made this book called Jam Session, which is outside. That's my plug for tonight. There will be several others. Hold on and you'll hear them. And, but this book was wonderful for us because this is a way to tell the story of all these women, of who they are and how they went through a transformation. It's so wonderful to see, you know, we made all these jams and we sold them at this event. And one of the women who was sitting next to me, she said, you know, Robi, this is the first time in my life that I ever had money in my hand. So you must realize with that how important it is to try to increment somebody's income who's never had money. I'm not talking about empower. I know that's a very famous word, but I rather like the word to self-esteem. Because when I see that somebody, and I know that that money is also going to go to education for their children. And that's terribly important. So we had this huge event in Tel Aviv called Neighbors, and we sold, I can't tell you how many jams and how many other goodies. And it was such a wonderful feeling, not because of the money, but because people could go away with this feeling that they did something and that it was successful. So now I want to come to this big idea. It's so exciting because I really told you in the beginning the Ubuntu, how our lives are intertwined. I guess you saw the shoes outside, did you? The shoes with the birds? I shall raise my leg. That's about as high as it can go. It's not for nothing. We have a film that I took around the West Bank. The West Bank is Palestinian. I mean, am I talking Greek or do you actually... Yes? Okay. No, why? I mean, why would you? You don't have to know. We traveled a lot with this film around the West Bank, and I kept meeting women along the way who were making embroidery, but they didn't have good material because they didn't have money to buy it. And they didn't have good thread because they didn't have the thread to buy it. And I kept asking, how long did it take you to make this little purse? And it would be like 10 days. And how much did you sell it for? And it would be like $2. That's this whole thing of pity buying, which is a terrible thing because that is the opposite of self-esteem. So we went to a fashion school in Tel Aviv, and they put us in touch with the London School of Art, and a whole bunch of students came from all over the world, and also students from Israel, and the Palestinian women who do the embroidery. First, the Palestinian women had to teach the Israelis and the students from abroad how to embroider. You don't want to come along and be the big white chief showing the natives how to work. And it was important because it created a rapport. And the students went away, and in short, they created something called embroidered jewelry, which is very beautiful but very difficult. And amongst all of this, somebody, I think it might have been me, I'm not sure, came up with this idea of doing the shoes. And then we came here last time, and suddenly everybody wanted the shoes. And then we thought to ourselves, wait a minute, how can we make this something much bigger than it is, give an income, allow women to give a message of peace all over the world? How can we change so that we... Let's choose. Do you know about the grandmothers who were in the Argentinian grandmothers? Okay, so what was happening in Argentina was that many, many people disappeared. And the grandmothers came once a week and walked in Plaza de la Mayo with pictures. And they've been doing this for years and years and years. Every week they come. So what do we want to do? We want to do marching, like once a month. It can't be every week because we have to bring the Palestinian women and we have to travel. It's very expensive to do that. But we might be able to do it once a month. But we want it to be global. In other words, all the women, and I don't know why men can't be involved in this. I'm trying to think why I'm not including men, and I'm sorry about that. But we want you to wear the shoes. And each pair of shoes that we make will be embroidered by a Palestinian woman to increment her income. But also, it will be a way to give back to the women's group in the parent circle. But much more than that, it's a message. On each pair of shoes, we would like to tell the story of one woman from the parent circle, of her journey from what happened to her to reconciliation. And so now we're busy exploring all of this. And I think that's something that you guys could do too. Say we decided the 5th of June, I've no idea why the 5th of June, but say we did. And we tell you that we are going to be wearing the shoes on the 5th of June in Palestine and in Israel. And we have contacts with women's groups all over the world, but we've got to start somewhere. Like, for instance, I was just in San Diego for 9 weeks with a woman from Sri Lanka. And they so desperately need something like the Synergy workshop there, because they have young leaders who are being trained to be political leaders, women. And I was thinking we could do this also in Sri Lanka, but we have to start somewhere and be in control and be focused. How does that sound to you? Would you like to do something like that? If I said on the 5th of June, the whole damn world is going to be wearing the shoes, Stop the Violence? I think it could be very important. And it would also be a way to support women, you know, and that for me is so important as well. I don't like rainbows and flowers and bad poetry. I think you have to do something, it's called in Hebrew, tachlis. But can you imagine if this group, how many women are here, also men, say there are like 25 or 30 of you who will be, because there's always a core of people. Can you imagine if you spread out this and you with your Facebook number can get, Maris, you'll never forgive me for this, huh? If you would get other women, it's not only us, just for the days. I'm not talking about to come to the leadership or to this ambassadors for program. Sorry, I can't even remember my own name sometimes. They said, I've got an excuse. I read the other day that if you travel a lot, your memory goes. So I should not be able to remember where I am at all. So it would be wonderful, though, if you could get other women to come, and one day you decide you'll go and walk outside the UN on the same day as we are all walking in Jerusalem and maybe in Sri Lanka. I don't know. I just see this as being something big. But not to make it into the club of Synergy, but to Synergy to get other women out. And the same, not to be only the parent circle families, but to open it to women of all kinds, of all colors who care. Because you have to start caring. I mean, we have to start making statements about the Congo, about Sudan, about these children that disappeared, about Iraq. It's horrific.
I just, you know, I wanted to also just say that, you know, on behalf of Synergy, you know, I'm not Israeli.
Really?
I know. I'm not Jewish. My family is English, and I grew up in Canada, okay? And, you know, the worst thing, those of you who've been in the basic with me know my terrible, terrible stories about my father. The worst thing that ever happened to me is he was a jerk, okay? So that's like the worst that ever happened to me. But for me, I've always been, and I don't know why, but inspired about a conversation of seeing eye to eye, reconciliation, respect. And so, you know, first of all, I'm always inspired by you, and I'm moved by you, and I love you.
And I love you too.
And you know, I really, again, those of you who've been in a basic with me here, we're not about workshops. Workshops are about, for us anyway, the chance to have some real conversations about who are we and how are we going to get together to make a difference together. So this is a vehicle that I see is in perfect alignment with what our vision is here at Synergy, which is to touch people's lives, empower people, and make a difference as a collective. The last thing that I also wanted to add is that we haven't talked too much, and that's okay, but the youth work that we do is part of this equation. It's part of this conversation. And so, you know, our commitment is to take the trainings that we've done here at Synergy and to translate them into lots of different settings, including youth in the Middle East, including youth around the world, including, if you even look at our website, under About Us, you'll see a video of graduates who went to Haiti to take a stand and make a difference, and not just, you know, not vacationing, I don't know what you call that. It's not gratuitous, like let's vacation and feel great about ourselves, but actually we're like the luckiest people around, and so who are we going to be about it? And so that's, you know, in terms of youth and what's to come and how people are being trained by us and the world that they see around us that we're creating, like who are we in the matter of that? So I'm very, you know, excited about the chance to, you know, take this, bridge this, expand this in so many different directions such as that. And I can't wait for April. Can I go to the April 26th, or it's just women?
Yeah.
Yeah? Okay.
It's done.
All right.
And those of you who want to come and meet Barbara Streisand and Helen Mirren, and what's the other one? Meryl Streep, and a whole bunch of other fancy ladies.
And Robi Damelin.
And Robbie and Bushra. And I sent Barbara Streisand 2 pairs of these shoes, and I'm bringing them for those two so that they too will wear them. So on the 7th of March, some 500 Israeli women went to the Kalandia checkpoint to meet with 1,000 Palestinian women that walked from all over the West Bank to meet us. And the sad thing is that the army shot tear gas at us. I don't know if you know what that's like. It's not pleasant. But it was an amazing beginning of something. Now, we have a little clip about that. And then on the 8th, the second clip that we made, because it was just before the elections, is that clip that you saw, which said, "We don't want you here," also with the tombstone. So there's lots to be done, and we can make a difference. And I think the women that we actually opened that room with the mirrors and the tombstones on International Women's Day, which is the 8th. And the 7th was the demonstration. And before that, there was a big march of women. 1,000 women, I think, went walking up to Jerusalem, to the Prime Minister's house, to say, "Stop the war."
אתמול שמענו את ראש הממשלה נואם לקונגרס האמריקאי, מסביר לנו שאיראן מהווה סכנה לכל המזרח התיכון. אנחנו חושבות שזה אומר שאנחנו חייבים מהר להגיע להסכם ולחזק את הקואליציה מול איראן. אנחנו נמצאים שבועיים לפני הבחירות, אבל אנחנו נמצאים באפלה. כל המערכת הפוליטית נסחפה אחרי השאלה יהיה נאום בוושינגטון או לא יהיה נאום בוושינגטון. בינתיים לא שמענו כאן בבית אף נאום על המצב המדיני. אף אחד לא אמר שום דבר ברור. ולכן, כמו שאמרה חווה, אנחנו באנו הנה להשמיע את הנאום החסר. הנאום שכל אחד מהמועמדים לראשות הממשלה היה צריך להשמיע. מזה שנים אנחנו שקועים כולנו בשיח עקר שבו אנחנו משכנעים את עצמנו שאין פרטנר, אין ברירה, צריך להתרגל לחיות עם הסכסוך. המילה שלום הפכה להיות מילת גנאי, עד כדי כך שמייעצים לנו לשנות את השם של התנועה שלנו. נולד עולם מושגים מעוות. פטריוטיות מזוהה עם מלחמה. ושלום עם מילת גנאי, משהו יתהפך פה, לא?
אנחנו באנו מכל חלקי הארץ כדי להזכיר לכם שכמו שמדינת היהודים לא הייתה אגדה, גם סיום הסכסוך איננו אגדה, אם רק תרצו. אזרחים ואזרחיות של מדינת ישראל, ביטחון איננו ההפך משלום. ביטחון הוא ההפך ממלחמה. ביטחון הוא להיות עם חכם, עם שדורש הסכם מדיני. איננו טוענות שזה קל. רבים ורבות טוענים שאין לנו שותף למאמצי השלום. לאלה אנו אומרות, מזה 12 שנים מונחת על השולחן יוזמת השלום של הליגה הערבית לסיום הסכסוך. עד היום אף אחד מממשלת ישראל לא התייחס ליוזמה הזאת. האם אנחנו בטוחים שהשותף הנהדר איננו אנו עצמנו? הדרך היחידה להתמודד עם האיומים הכבדים של מדינת ישראל היא בהמשך קידום משא ומתן עם הפלסטינים ולפתור את הבלגן שקורה פה.
חברות, אני יודעת שאתם תסכימו איתי. זה מהלך קשה. הוא מצריך כוחות נפש גדולים. והוא מצריך כוח של ויתור. הוויתור הוא לא על דברים פיזיים, הוויתור הוא מנטלי, על השקפות עולם, על אמונות. נכון, זה קשה. פשרה תמיד תביא את הדברים שחלק מאיתנו ירגישו שמאוד קשה להם איתם. אבל אני שואלת אתכם, זה לא שווה בשביל להפסיק את המלחמה? אנחנו באנו הנה לומר, די! סבלנו מלחמות. אני נולדתי בארץ. אבא שלי היה ניצול שואה, היחיד מכל המשפחה שלו. הוא הגיע הנה ולחם במלחמת העצמאות ואף נפצע במלחמה. אמא שלי נולדה כאן, לחמה בפלמ"ח. לאורך כל ילדותי לימדו אותי להתייצב לצו המולדת. כי לימדו אותי שאנחנו נלחמים רק שבאמת אין שום ברירה אחרת. אנחנו נלחמים רק אחרי שמיצינו את כל האפשרויות האחרות. היום יש לי בן סרן במילואים, ואני לא יכולה להגיד לו את אותו דבר. כשהוא הולך למלחמה אני נקרעת מבפנים. לשלוח אותו? להגיד לו שמיצינו את כל האפשרויות האחרות? די! 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 התחלנו היום במסע של מנהיגות חדשה. זאת מנהיגות שלא מבקשת משרות, לא מבקשת משרדים ולא מבקשת שום טובת הנאה. זאת מנהיגות שיש לה רק דרישה אחת, חזון של תקווה ולא של ייאוש. חזון של שגשוג ולא של קיפאון. אנחנו עומדות כאן מול הכנסת שעדיין ריקה, אבל בעוד שבועיים היא תתמלא. ואנחנו קוראות מכאן לכל אזרחיות ואזרחי ישראל, רגע לפני שאתם שמים את הפתק בקלפי, חישבו, אל תקבלו את מקסם השווא של הפוליטיקאים של כוח צבאי חסר גבולות. דרשו מכל מנהיג, מכל מפלגה, מכל חברת וחבר כנסת, או שתגיעו להסכם שלום, או שתפנו את הדרך למי שיכול לעשות את זה. די למלחמה!
So, it's amazing. You never know what's going to happen, right? We showed this clip I told you about, the very first clip that you saw, We Don't Want You Here. And a young American guy came to Peace Square, and his name is Max, and with Rustot. You know, how do you say Rustot? Dreadlocks. Yeah, dreads. Yes. And lovely, lovely kid. And he said, I want to do something. What can I do? And he runs a company called Artolution, like Art Solution, Artolution. And he does street art and murals all over the world. So I said, okay, let's make a mural. And that was on Thursday. On the Tuesday, we went to Beit Jala, which is in the West Bank. And the women who I had not seen since the beginning of the war came to Beit Jala. They were part of the embroidery group. And everybody spent an hour and a half screaming at me because I was the first Israeli that they met after the war. And who else can they scream at, right? So we let that happen, and we listened, and I answered. And then I said, enough, let's go and do something else. And we went into the room, and Max had set up this whole canvas, which is 9 feet by 2 feet. How the hell do you know what that is in yards? And what was it they told us? It's huge, 9 meters. 9 meters, so 30 feet. 30 feet, it's really big. And the women started painting very gently, and, you know, they were all very reticent. But then we put on some music, and they suddenly got it. And they took off their headscarves, and they started painting and dancing, and it was the most wonderful way to end that very sad day. And then we traveled to Tel Aviv, and in the night we took it to the Peace Square, and we put it around the tent, and we finished it in Tel Aviv. The other half was made in Tel Aviv. And when it was finished, it was so beautiful that we said, okay, let's see what else we can do with it. So we took it to Washington. It was in Washington. If you saw how heavy it is, you would think that's a miracle. The miracle is that the man from UPS loves us and didn't charge us. Otherwise, there's no way we could have brought it here. And he sent it to Washington. And we set it up at J Street, which is a very, very big convention for Jewish people who are more on the liberal side. And then we brought it here to the UN because we wanted there to be an audience. And I think that's a very good setting as maybe an example to people from the UN that that's really the whole message that should be coming out of the UN is peace and not to take sides. Because when you're pro-Israeli or pro-Palestinian, what you're doing is importing our conflict into your country and creating hatred between Jews and Muslims and Christians. Not a good idea. Better to leave us alone if you want to take sides, and if you want to be part of the solution, we would welcome you because you must spread this message. Okay? And thank you all so much for everything that you're going to do and that you are doing.
We have a lot of amazing graduates here at Synergy who are Israeli and very committed to this conversation. So this is how I started. I'm from Canada and England, and so yes, this was not kind of my conversation every day. However, what the Parent Circle and Robi and Synergy are up to, we're aligned around what it is to be respectful of each other, what it is to stand for each other, what it is to, be on the same side of something. So, yes, Robi's conversation and tonight's conversation focused to a certain extent on the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, but you can drill it down into people's families and communities and companies and we work on all of it. This is New York, so in our setting, we've got people from all over the world. In this room tonight, there are people from all over the world. And we may not have the same unique issues or conversations, but underneath, it's about how do we get on the same side with each other? How do we empower each other? So that's where we share a commitment.
And tonight you announced also this special and unique ambassadors program. Tell us about that.
Yes, exciting. And, another thing that's very relevant for me, which is why we're excited to launch this new endeavor, is there's talk and then there's action and there's results. And talk is great, but we're interested in the action and results to go along with it. So we're creating this program, 50 women, 50 youth, and we're going to work with them in depth over the course of 6 months to become, as we're going to call it, essentially ambassadors of this conversation, ambassadors of a conversation for peace, reconciliation, forgiveness. And, during this year, we'll be going back, actually next month, back to Tel Aviv to do more synergy work with the Parent Circle, with the Israelis, Palestinian members. We'll be going to Sri Lanka. We'll be going to South Africa. We're going to be going all around that's part of our commitment. Even people like Robi, even though she may make it look easy and it's like, okay, that's a powerful story, but we're all human at the end of the day, and people have their own challenges and issues. No matter how connected to your vision you might be, there's obstacles and challenges. So that's kind of where we fit in, is a commitment to empower others who are making a difference on the planet. So I kind of think of us as getting up underneath people who are out there already making a difference.
I know this might be a very unfair question to ask you, but as an outsider looking in at this conflict and working with the people on the ground on finding solution, do you see the light at the end of the tunnel?
It's an interesting question. I don't know how to answer it. What I could say is from my experience of having done the work we did, I saw in a really short period of time the chance for people to push past what was in their way with each other. So even in an organization that's doing the most extraordinary work like this group is doing, there are interpersonal struggles and challenges, and I don't like you, and you don't like her, and we're like trying to get along, but we're up to something amazing. And I saw in a very short period of time, people move to being really open, really connected with each other. So in a grander scheme, in a bigger picture, yeah, I mean, I think that's, for me, in my experience at 52, getting out there and rolling up our sleeves and getting into some of these conversations, I have seen it make a difference in large and small. So I don't have a simple necessarily answer for your question, but I think that it's there to happen. And I think that really people want it. I think that with the level of media these days, with the level of social network that people are connected to, with all the ways society has changed over these recent decades, I think people want change and peace and connection. I think it's there. I really think it's there. And I think even when I started this conversation 30 years ago, I'm not the originator of all of this. I'm just saying when I personally got involved in this commitment, I could see tremendous changes in 30 years, dramatic changes in 30 years with how comfortable people are even just talking about themselves and being open in ways that we weren't 20 years ago. And so I think there is an evolution, and I think that this goes hand in hand. I don't know if that answers your question, but...
Thank you so much.
Yes,
thank you
you're
for
welcome.
having us tonight, and very blessed work.
My pleasure.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
So you heard tonight a lot of things that are kind of an unusual spin on how we view the conflict, but I hope that it brought you a step closer to seeing maybe a little bit of the other side. From the Synergy Education Center in Midtown Manhattan, I'm Ron Jacobsohn for JBS.
We would be pleased to send a complimentary DVD of this program to anyone who wishes to support JBS, the Jewish Broadcasting Service, with a tax-deductible gift of $36, double chai or more, to the nonprofit organization Jewish Education in Media. Simply visit the JBS homepage and click on the Donate button to make a donation by PayPal or your credit card. And please indicate the program for which you would like a DVD. Or you can send your tax-deductible check made out to GEM, Post Office Box 180, Riverdale Station, Bronx, New York 10471. And again, please remember to indicate which program you would like to receive with our compliments. And we thank you for your kind support.